Shadows in the Mist by Amy Flint. Chapter 1. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The air was soured with stale beer and regret. It lured Porter from her musings. She peered from under her brim at an elderly man framed by beer cans. They were an unwelcome addition to an already bleak scene. The man stared back. Porter's Panama shielded black eyes and snowy skin, but her colourless curls refused to be curbed. They made a mockery of her age. "Hey, Angel, want a seat?" The man swept his belongings to one side. Porter hesitated. After weeks of fruitless house hunting, the bench was the most attractive offer to date. "Keep it free." "I might be back," she responded wryly. Turning to go, Porter grazed the man standing behind her. A chill cut through her, freezing her apology. She flinched at the tragedy that was once her face and inadvertently stepped back. The man was too distracted by the blood pooling around his boots to take offence. "Are you okay, Angel?" Porter's gaze shifted to the mangled wreck that barely passed for a bicycle. She glanced back at the victim. He was diminishing fast. Moments later, he was gone. "You look like you've seen a ghost," said the man on the bench. Porter left without comment. Women donning veils and learner plates tripped along the shambles. Impending nuptials and Prosecco fueled their excitement. Porter slipped into a doorway and waited for the party to pass. For this was York, a wonder of the world and a magnet for pleasure seekers. With its history, religion, chocolate and railways, the city had much to offer, and if these failed to satisfy, which rumour has it happened to a Lancastrian in 1984, York had one more card to play. Betty's. The cafe's cream tea could soften the toughest of critics. Porter reached King Square. The crowd gathered beneath the tightrope was becoming restless. The waiting game proved too much for one spectator, who deserted the square in disgust. Others were about to mimic when a scantily clad man materialised. His triple somersault inspired applause. The group had not been waiting in vain. Porter held back, refusing to be hoodwinked by sequins. The entertainer incited further clapping before darting behind a tree. Music flooded the square and the clapping stopped. It was only a momentary blip. The man reappeared with props and encouragement. He spoiled the crowd with further theatrics before backing away from the tightrope. Tension rippled through the square as the entertainer weighed up the rope for effect. "Hope you've got insurance, son," yelled a pensioner. A hop, a cartwheel, and the performer came to roost between the trees. The audience went wild. Even Porter could not deny him his talent. The glittery vision pranced back and forth along the narrow twine. A few twists were thrown in to show off his elasticity before he proved fire could be swallowed upside down. The audience exploded. Many assumed that to be the finale, yet the street artist had other ideas. Cue the cute dog with a hoop. The entertainer summoned his terrier. With a wag of his tail, the animal dragged his prop through the crowd. The woman next to Porter was impressed by matching costumes. "Poor mutt looks embarrassed to me," muttered her husband. Porter was inclined to agree. Copying his master, the dog bounded onto the rope. He surrendered his hoop to jump through it. The crowd cringed as the sequence played out, each move more death-defying than the last. When the entertainers finally finished their act, their audience was utterly spent. "And now for the hardest part," said the entertainer, passing a bowl to his dog. His comment was well-founded, for the threat of a fee prompted an exodus. "Give the dog some money, Mick. Don't be so tight," the canine's fan badgered her husband. "Why should I? I didn't ask him to perform." The entertainer's smile slipped, while others tarried in anticipation of an encore. "Mick," the woman blushed. "Don't mick me. He's choosing to prance about in his long johns," the man growled. "And you're choosing to watch. Put your hand in your pocket and don't be such a Scrooge," the man shamed them all. The performer gave Porter a grateful smile when she threw in the first coin. On crossing the square, Porter noticed a bear peeping from under a bench. She was all for shunning it until she heard screaming. It was coming from a pushchair in front of a cafe. Diners glared at the woman struggling to console her child. Some had watched the entertainer but failed to leave a tip. Karma was now rewarding them in kind. Porter was tempted to leave them to Hal's recital, but the child's wailing was pathetically heartfelt. She approached the little girl. "Lost something?" Tears evaporated on seeing the toy. Chubby arms reached out to snatch it, but then she looked at the woman doing her a good turn and recoiled. "Teddy, thank God," the parent gushed. "Take Teddy from the nice lady, Sarah." "Don't want to," was the sulky response. Porter wished she had left Teddy to his fate. She dropped him in the pushchair. "You saved my bacon," declared the woman. "What do you say to the nice lady, Sarah?" "You look funny," said the child. The mother apologised. "She's at that age." "She does, Mummy. She's all white." The mother stared. Black eyes stared back. The mother blushed and looked away. Porter took that as her cue to go. Porter was cutting through Dean's Park when she saw a cleric entering York Minster. She was sorely tempted to follow. An edifice of such proportions would have many nooks and crannies, and Porter could happily live in either. The bells reminded her of the hour. Leaving the cleric to his business, she continued to Bishop's Hall, where students were loitering on the green in front of the aged property. A security guard noticed Porter struggling to reach the door. "Stop blocking the entrance! You don't need a degree for that," he bellowed, rolling his eyes at Porter when she passed him on the steps. More students were swarming in the reception area, waiting for afternoon lectures to start. Porter sidled round them to the stairs at the back and descended to her subterranean world. Cabinets filled with the archaeology department's treasures lined the underground labyrinth. Objects once revered by thousands were now grateful to attract dust. A Roman urn signposted Porter to the recently formed Paranormal Investigation Unit. PIU, as it was known for short, was the brainchild of an anonymous donor set up to investigate all things ghostly. And with paranormal activity plaguing the many residents of York, this new unit had its work cut out. Its creation was proving controversial, though. All Saints University already boasted a parapsychology department, which coveted the money for its many research projects. But the donor was not interested in telepathy or reincarnation, or whatever paranormal phenomena they chose to study that month. No, this person's passion lay solely with ghosts, plain and simple. Head of parapsychology, Professor Lovegrove, was still irritated. It scarcely helped that PIU was billeted in his basement, thus depriving him of 3 offices, a second common room, and a broom cupboard. "You can't let ghost hunters squat in my cellar, Jonathan," he had grumbled to the dean when the deal was being done. "You're pandering to someone who won't even give you their name. It's absurd." The dean needed money, not an identity. Indulging the donor now could lead to further funding later. A new library was at the top of his wish list. "That's all very well, Jonathan, but I'm the one having to sacrifice offices and a common room." "And a broom cupboard," the dean had added waspishly. Furious, Lovegrove had contacted a journalist friend. He wanted it known that his department conducted credible research, while PIU was merely a sideshow. The dean had read the article the following morning and nearly choked on his toast. His shock was short-lived, but the same could not be said for his anger. The dean held grudges, sometimes for years, waiting for the right moment to exact revenge. Payback in this instance had come in the form of Dr. Fergus MacDonald. Fergus was ambitious. He was also Lovegrove's deputy. The dean had poached him for the role of director of PIU. Fergus's promotion had left Lovegrove reeling. Having always thought his deputy loyal, Fergus's betrayal was a bitter pill indeed, and it was catching. Others from his department had also applied for positions within PIU, including Lovegrove's ablest researcher, Sue Wainwright. Losing Sue was not a blow, it was a catastrophe. Lovegrove had invested years into honing her skills. He thought she owed him. Sue respectfully disagreed. She craved promotion just as much as Fergus, and if that meant working for PIU, she was happy to leave Lovegrove in a lurch. An administrator had been easy enough to source. Lovegrove wasn't famed for valuing his support staff, and 2 of his assistants had applied. Filling the 2 paranormal investigator roles had proved trickier. Human Resources demanded Fergus advertise the jobs externally, even though he had had candidates in mind. Sue had been privy to his phone call with a recruiter. "Are you sure the job couldn't extend to welding?" The recruiter's optimism had drifted over the speaker. Fergus had repeated his list of requirements. The recruiter could be forgiven for deeming it a hoax call, but Sue had heard scribbling. "So definitely no welding, then? We have some excellent welders on our books." "I'm sure the skills are second to none, but I need candidates with a background in parapsychology." Fergus had remained firm. "That's a pity. We're a little short of paranormal investigators, Fergus had said helpfully. Yes, but we've plenty of welders. Could you widen your job description? Not on this occasion, Fergus had managed a hint of regret. I don't want to waste anyone's time. Or yours, Sue had thought. The recruiter had eventually accepted defeat. I'll advertise the roles, Dr. MacDonald, but we might struggle to get much interest. On account of the lack of welding, said Fergus. Exactly. Call me if you have any welding jobs. Experience had taught Fergus he should never rule anything out. I'll bear that in mind. The recruiter's pessimism turned out to be misplaced. 573 people had applied, and not a welder among them. The recruiter had devoted a week to updating her candidate records. Fergus had been interviewing applicants when the dean dropped in and handed him an envelope. Am I being subpoenaed? Asked Fergus. You might prefer it, said the dean. Fergus had read the letter. The dean was right. PIU's donor wanted Porter Biggleswade. Fergus appreciated why. Porter was a talented paranormal investigator, famed for her ability to see ghosts, but she worked for Anomaly, and he doubted she would leave London. The donor had been willing to compensate her for the inconvenience. No, it's not a typo, said the dean when Fergus had noted the salary. The donor wants Dr. Porter Biggleswade. I assume he can make it happen. Fergus was shrewd enough not to air his qualms. Compliance had increased his favour with the dean. Fergus had phoned Porter that very day. Porter was not surprised by the offer. Her latest book was a bestseller, and she was rapidly becoming a household name where spirits were concerned. She did, however, surprise herself by accepting it. She vaguely recalled a bad day at work, an argument with her boss, and an unsolicited call from someone offering to double her salary. Being given an intern and the chance to choose her own cases had clinched the deal. Hence Porter traded in London's shadows for York's murky corners. Now all she needed was a home.